Today I'm going to be creating a sphere using my oil pastels and analogous colors. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other in the color wheel. So here I have yellow, yellow-green, and green, and these are the colors I'm going to be sticking to create this sphere. So first I want to draw my light source. I have mine coming from the top right-hand corner. And then I'm going to draw my highlights, midtones, and my shadows. Notice that these are perfectly circular. I don't want this. This is what I never ever want. This is not good. It will result in kind of an egg shape effect. We want these to be perfectly round, just like the object that they're on. So I went ahead and drew these in, and now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 circles, and I'm going to start shading them in with my oil pastels to create that round spherical effect. So the first one I'm going to do is my highlight. I'm going to take my white. If it's a little bit dirty, you can clean it off kind of on the side of your paper. Notice that I'm always cleaning and coloring from the side angle, and I'm rotating as I do this to keep a nice point on my oil pastel. So I'm going to go in, create that highlight, and now I'm going to, I've done this really hard with a hard pressure because this is going to stay white. It's my brightest spot in the entire sphere. Now I'm going to go in my second ring. I'm coloring lightly with a lighter pressure. It's like adding a little less white to your paints. And then in this third ring I'm going to do this lightest. I'm barely touching the paper, adding just a little bit of white, using the side of my material to keep that nice point. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with my yellow. I'm not going into that first circle, I'm going into the second ring, using a harder pressure so that I can blend the yellow with that white. And then I'll go in with my yellow in that third ring as well. Okay, so now I'm going to take my white again and I'm going to blend. I don't want to see this hard line in between values, so I'm going to use my white to blend using that circular technique. It's called scumbling, going in small circles, and I'm blending out so that I don't have that hard line. Now I'm going to go into my greens, and I'm going to take my green in this third circle, well, fourth, so we have the highlight, a midtone, another midtone, and then we have our green. This is a yellow-green. It'll go all the way around that circle and touch barely at the top. And now I want to go back and blend so that I don't see that hard line. So I'm going to go back with my yellow because that's the lighter of the two. I always go back with my lighter color and blend. I drew my lines really hard so that you could see, but it's better to draw them lightly so that you don't see them after you've colored in your sphere. You don't want that. So now I'm going to go in with my darkest value, which is my green, and I'm going to go into this last ring. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge though, because I'm going to have a really dark shadow there, and I'll show you how to create that using a trick, a color trick. It goes all the way around, barely touches as it gets near that light source. Almost goes all the way to the edge, but not quite. And then I'm going to go back and blend because I can see this harsh difference between the two, and I don't want that. I want them to blend together, so that I'm creating this smooth gradation from one color to another. I might bring my green in here a little bit. Smooth change from one thing to another. Okay, now I'm almost totally finished, but I have this little sliver left that I haven't shaded in yet, and there's a trick to this. So if you look at the color wheel, across from each other on the color wheel are complementary colors, and complementary to green is red. So I have two options for my shade. I can either add black, which will create a shade, but it will be a little bit flat, or I can add the complementary color, which will create a much nicer shade. So I'm doing this very lightly because I don't want a red shadow at the end. I just want it to be darker green. If I press too hard, it will look red, which is not the effect that we're going for. So I'm pressing extremely lightly. It's getting really skinny as it gets towards that light source, barely touching. And then I'm going to go back and blend with my green. Making sure to get to those edges so that it doesn't look red. Using the side, rotating. Okay, so now you have your sphere. It's beginning to look round. If it doesn't, you have one of two problems. Either one, your circles were not perfectly round, and you need to go back and make them perfectly round instead of maybe an oval shape or an egg shape. Or two, you need to go back and blend some more. Make sure to blend in between those colors. So you're going to be doing this again with a warmer set of colors, but first get this perfectly right, and then we will start moving into our warm colors.